So ever buy something like a concert ticket? Right now, I'm trying to buy tickets to see Matchbox 20 in Toronto. And they're the first concert I ever went to, actually, so I'd like to see them. And I've picked a ticket that's, it's pretty far from the stage, with $74, so that's okay. And when I get to checkout, it's now $92.50. And that's all thanks to an $18.50 service fee.
Those extra surcharges, they make your concert tickets more expensive, your hotel reservations, that's what always gets me.
The fees you don't expect could put a purchase out of reach, and especially so for those of us who are already on a budget.
And it's making companies billions of dollars richer across industries spanning banking and telecom to entertainment and hospitality.
And these kinds of extra charges are known as junk fees. You've probably seen them labeled as a resort fee at a hotel or a baggage fee on a receipt. It's those charges that come out of nowhere, right when you're ready to pay.
All the time. Hotel tickets, airports, flying anywhere, tons of fees.
I stayed at a hotel. I asked, are there any extra fees? They said no. The bill on the last night, we were charged a $40 a night amenity fee, but even crazier, a $1 mandatory charity donation.
Yeah, if you could tell me exactly what this fee is going to.
These fees are big moneymakers for businesses. American consumers shell out at least $29 billion every year in extra charges. And according to a survey by Consumer Reports, at least 85% of Americans have dealt with hidden fees. And they can drive up costs way beyond what you expected to pay.
It's the same in telecom, it's the same with the ticket sales. You're sitting there at the end of your adventure online trying to buy tickets to Taylor Swift, and you're like, well, do I pay the extra $40 convenience fee for the ticket, or do I not go to the show? So you're kind of a captive audience in that respect because it's mandatory.
But these junk fees could be coming to an end in North America. The U.S. has been moving to clamp down on hidden charges. President Joe Biden even talked about it in his latest State of the Union speech. And there's actual legislation on the table there.
President Biden's cracking down on so-called junk fees. Biden says the move should give Americans more breathing room amid the highest prices in 4 decades.
Senator Richard Blumenthal has introduced new legislation to combat these hidden fees.
We're going to require that they be told to the consumer up front, and federal authorities would enforce those kinds of prohibitions and disclosure requirements.
And now, Ottawa is saying it wants to get rid of junk fees too. The federal government pledged to crack down on them in the 2023 budget, saying it wants to work with regulatory agencies, provinces, and territories to reduce junk fees for Canadians. So we've brought in CBC senior business reporter Anis Hadari in Calgary and a friend of the show to help break down why these fees are allowed to exist and just why they're so hard to get rid of. Hey, Anis.
Hi there.
Okay, it's safe to say most of us have seen these fees, right? We've dealt with them. And they're cracking down in the States, but we haven't really seen the same type of crackdown here in Canada. Why is that?
Here in Canada, we haven't seen the same sort of focused crackdown that we heard about in the States, for example. That's starting to change. The federal government in the last budget said they want to crack down on what they called junk fees. They cited roaming charges from phone companies, ticket and event fees, say when you're trying to go to a concert. But when I spoke to consumer advocates in Canada, they said actually the government doesn't need to pass any sort of new laws. We have laws that already forbid these kind of fees. They just aren't enforced as much. So there are tools to solve this problem.
The problem is there's no oversight and enforcement, and it's being left to consumers to enforce consumer protection law and competition law for themselves. Governments just won't enforce the law, and even where consumers might have the ability to take some kind of action under the law, they're putting up procedural hurdles to keep those kinds of actions from happening.
So he basically says the law's already there. We don't need a new law to take care of this. We just need government agencies, and that's the federal government, the provinces, all these agencies. They just need to actually do something about it, Lauren.
Right. Okay. So without that oversight and enforcement, what options does an average consumer have to kind of fight back against these hidden fees?
One of the things that an average person can do is file a lawsuit. In theory, going to court is the way that you can sort of police these things yourself, but that's expensive. You know, you heard Ken Whitehurst talk about procedural hurdles. Going to court is a big hurdle. It's a big hassle, and it's expensive. But people are really paying more attention to this now. They're feeling maybe a little more frustrated because as prices keep going up, so do all the fees.
Now we're in a period of inflation, and everyone is becoming more price aware and more conscious that that the protections they had actually aren't there anymore. And it's not because the law doesn't provide the protection. The protection's not there because there's no investment anymore in oversight and enforcement.
Okay, so in the U.S., they're going through the process right now of bringing laws into legislation, and Biden talked about cracking down in the State of the Union speech. Do you, how likely is it that real change is going to happen there?
Well, it takes time for anything to sort of churn through the American political system, just like ours, frankly. So there's a lot of talk in the States. But it's not just that there's the political machine, you know, the Democrats and the Republicans. They are a little bit ahead of Canada. You know, there's a law that's been proposed, it's been tabled. But there's also a lot of companies that want to keep making money. They want to keep making money in the U.S. They want to keep making money in Canada. And when you have these fees, you can charge a higher price than you advertise, because the advertised price is without the fee. It sounds a lot sexier.
Make no mistake, all of these industries have their trade associations. I mean, that is I don't know what Ottawa's like, but I can tell you DC, and having been here 25 years, they will rally to fight any effort to get rid of what they perceive as a moneymaker. And that's what these fees are. They get to advertise low prices, and they make billions of dollars off of them.
You know, I did reach out to Ticketmaster and to a couple of the airlines. I didn't hear back from them, but certainly I don't think what Schwantes is saying there is a big surprise to anybody. Companies are going to lobby to keep making more money, Lauren.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so frustrating as a consumer. Can we expect to see, a similar law here in Canada, do you think?
So I reached out to the Ministry of Finance. They said that we will get more details on what's coming for Canada in the fall. They did say that we have a lot of the regulatory tools that are needed, just like Ken Whitehurst mentioned, but the federal government told me that if new legislative tools are required, they will implement them. And I mean, governments can pass whatever laws they want to, in theory. I reached out to the Competition Bureau as well. It said, they're already on this. They call junk fees drip pricing. So, drip, drip, drip. For now, we're still paying a lot of those fees, but there are avenues that we are seeing some change here in Canada. But as far as any new laws or tools, we have to wait to the fall to see that from the feds.
Okay, well, we will be watching and waiting. Anissa Dari, thanks so much for taking us through this.
You're welcome.